I never had any real interest in playing cards. Back in college, a few friends tried to teach me poker, but I just couldn't get the hang of it. As a result, I never bothered to learn the intricacies of hand rankings or the details of Texas Hold'em or whatever it was called. It simply didn't capture my interest. Frustrated with always losing money to my cutthroat friends, I eventually quit playing altogether. On the other hand, my wife Emily had a deep passion for poker and was quite good at it. She thrived in local tournaments and usually played with her regular group of friends. They would gather once or twice a month at David and Rachel's suburban townhouse. Emily had known David and Rachel since college. Emma had been her close friend and Rachel was her former roommate. The group consisted of David, Rachel, Emily, Michael, Jason, and Kevin. While I was there, Michael's wife Sarah and Jason's wife Lauren chose not to play and instead watched TV in the living room. There used to be another player, Scott, but he got kicked out for cheating. I didn't mind Emily participating, though it was her circle, not mine. Sarah and Lauren were pleasant, and we were even becoming friends. However, the others were merely tolerable at best. Voluntarily interacting with them was beyond my willingness, especially Greg, who was outright foolish and whom I genuinely disliked. Kevin and Greg seemed out of place. Kevin, being reserved and unassuming, didn't seem particularly skilled at poker. Greg, on the other hand, was unbearable. If we crossed paths in public, I'd likely ignore him. His loud, obnoxious, and self-centered attitude led to several conflicts between us. I only put up with him because he was part of my wife's poker group, and I only saw him during their games. My main issue with poker nights was how intensely competitive Emma became. If she lost, it cast a shadow over her mood the following day. Despite my efforts to address this, she brushed off my concerns. Recently, she had been pushing for weekly poker sessions, which I wasn't thrilled about, and neither was Sarah nor Lauren. Thankfully, this kept the weekly poker plan at bay, for now. One Saturday night at David and Rachel's, tensions were running high, especially for Emma. As the night dragged on, I periodically checked on her, only to find her increasingly frustrated. Eventually, well past the usual end time, I heard commotion coming from the dining room where they were playing. I walked in to find Greg making a claim about a bet, with David reminding everyone of the rules. Emma reluctantly agreed, signaling it was her turn to play. "What's going on?" Greg asked with a smirk and a hostile glare. "Emma lost all her money, so now I get the final hand. She lost, and now it's time to settle up." "I'm sorry," Emma said. "I wouldn't do this to anyone else but you." "Hey, buddy, she made a bet and lost." "That's the rule," Greg said. At that moment, Emma decided to take control of her fate. "James, it's fine. I lost. I'll pay," Emma conceded. "No, Emma, you owe me loyalty. Trying to settle for less would be cheating me," I protested. Greg's behavior only reinforced my suspicion of his character. "You're witnessing this, so it's not betrayal," Greg argued. Fed up, I snapped, "Shut up, you idiot. This isn't about you." Turning to Emma, I urged, "Let's go, we're leaving." Emma hesitated. "James, I hate to do this, but I must. If I don't, I'll be kicked out." I responded firmly. "I don't care if you're expelled. I don't care if you never play poker again." I moved toward the door, calling out, "Hey guys, I need your help." Emma glanced at Michael and Jason, signaling me with a tilt of her head. As I moved closer, Michael and Jason grabbed me from behind. I struggled, but David stepped in to help restrain me. "Are you serious, you idiots?" I exclaimed. "You're going to hold me down while my wife does this in front of me?" David responded calmly. "She made a bet and knew the consequences. She's choosing to stay, so she pays up." He chuckled. "Don't worry, Greg won't be around much longer. He really is an idiot." Greg then moved directly in front of Emma, who was kneeling. "Amelia, if you go through with this, it's over," I said calmly, emphasizing her full name. "Stop being dramatic, James," she retorted. As she leaned forward, I let out a loud scream, stopping her. "Hold on a moment," I interjected. She paused and met my gaze. "I just want to be clear. Is everyone okay with this?" Silence filled the room until Greg stepped forward, dismissing my concerns. "Come on, he's spoiling the mood," he declared. Emma, leaning forward, intervened. "Okay, that's enough. I can't bear to see it anymore. Let me go, and I'll leave." With a growing plan in mind, I realized it wasn't over between Emma and me. I needed to get back at this fool. Emma signaled to the men holding me, and they released me. I approached Emma calmly. Pretending to struggle with my wedding ring, I extended my left hand with fingers spread wide, while my right hand clenched into a fist. Emma knelt determinedly to my left, and Greg grinned menacingly to my right. I warned you, Emma. If you go through with this, we're done, I reiterated, standing beside them and locking eyes with her. You went ahead and did it, Amelia. And with such a fool, I muttered. As I spoke, I slammed the back of my right fist into Greg's nose, causing him to raise both hands to shield his face. I quickly shifted to his right and landed another punch with my left fist while he was hunched over, making him stumble backward. His pants and underwear slipped down to his ankles, leading to a clumsy fall onto his backside and then flat onto the floor, landing awkwardly between the dining table and an antique cabinet. Fueled by fury, I acted on impulse. Emma fell backward onto her rear as I loomed over Greg, who was sprawled at my feet. To my right was a large dining table meant to seat 8 comfortably, with 3 chairs on each side. To my left stood an impressive antique wardrobe at least 6 feet long. The base, made of oak, was about 30 inches high, with multiple drawers and doors. The top portion, 40 inches higher, featured mirrored glass doors holding collectibles like china, Hummel figurines, and snow globes. Grabbing the top of the antique cabinet, I realized that knocking it over was unlikely, but I hoped it would intimidate Greg. The hefty base, filled with various items, probably weighed over 300 pounds, while the top, supported by a wooden frame, housed delicate treasures. Unfortunately for Greg, David had never properly secured the upper section to the base. As I yanked on it, the top half of the cabinet started to wobble. Although I hadn't planned on it falling on Greg, I found an odd sense of satisfaction in the outcome. The crash that followed was deafening, like a thunderclap. Luckily for Greg, the space between the cabinet's base and the dining table kept it from falling directly on him. Instead, the lower half remained on its stand, while the top half crashed into the dining table. The cabinet's contents spilled forward, shattering through the glass doors and raining shards down on Greg, along with the items inside, causing numerous cuts. Thankfully, he shielded his bleeding face with his hands, preventing the glass from injuring his broken nose or eyes. Unfortunately, when Greg hit the floor, his shirt had ridden up to his stomach because his jeans and boxers had been pulled down to his ankles, leaving his torso and legs exposed. The scene unfolded rapidly, leaving everyone stunned into silence. Amidst the chaos, I stayed in improvisation mode. Pretending to be concerned, I circled the table where Greg's head lay and loudly declared, "Don't touch him! Get an ambulance!" Once I reached his head, I crouched down low so only he could hear and whispered, "I hope you bleed, but if not, find me later and we'll talk. Just so you know, there's glass everywhere. I wouldn't move much if I were you." Rachel emerged from the kitchen, announcing, "The ambulance is on its way. ETA is 5 minutes. Should we also call the police?" Emma and I responded simultaneously. She said no while I insisted, "Absolutely." Emma wasn't naive. She knew that involving the police meant filing a report and giving statements. David was furious. "Dude, you practically took him out and wrecked my cabinet. We need to call the cops," he argued. "I didn't mean to take him out, but I agree we should call the police," I said. "Personally, I'd be happy to talk to them. Isn't this like soliciting sex for money?" I challenged. David shot back, "Who do you think they'll believe? Me or the guy lying here half naked, who isn't married to any of the women?" I conceded. "Maybe I'm wrong. Go ahead, call them. Do whatever you want. Please call the police. I'll wait outside for the ambulance," I added. I walked around the table and approached Emma, who was now kneeling beside Greg. Squatting next to her, I removed my wedding ring and threw it into the shattered glass near Greg's head. "You know what, Amelia? I don't think I'll be needing this anymore. If you want, you can dig it out of the glass." Confused, Emma looked at me with tear-filled eyes and asked, "Cards next to his head? What are these? Extra cards? Wait, the guy you left your marriage for is a cheater? Are you kidding me?" I exclaimed, "Greg, you're a fool. I almost betrayed my husband. And you actually cheated?" There's a huge difference between almost cheating and actually cheating. Noting that Greg couldn't speak due to the glass shards covering his face and the blood everywhere, I decided to address it later. "Stay here, Amelia. I'll go outside and meet the ambulance. They should be here any minute. I'll let you know when they arrive." I left through the front door, jumped into my car, and drove away. A couple of blocks down, I saw an ambulance cruising slowly, scanning house numbers with its spotlight. As I passed by, I kept driving home. Once I got there, I began packing, anticipating the arrival of the police. I grabbed a small suitcase and a few duffel bags, quickly throwing in essentials. Over the next few days, I finished packing. Just as I was zipping up my suitcase, I heard Emma come in through the front door calling out, "James, where are you?" Ignoring her, I walked out of the bedroom with my bags. "Oh, there you are," she said upon spotting me. "James, what are you doing? You don't have to leave," she pleaded. "God, you know," I said. "Uh-oh," I began, directing my attention to Greg. "I know exactly what you did, Greg. What about David and Jason? Or do you only go after married men? And you chose to kneel here instead of just paying up. By the way, what was the bet anyway?" Emma jumped in. "James, stop it. Greg was an exception, no matter what the stakes were. It was about principle. I never intended to sleep with him. Plus, you interrupted. Did I stop you? You were already getting into it when I stepped in," she retorted, dodging the question. "I managed to prevent them from calling the police and retrieved your ring from the shattered glass. I've said it before. I don't care. They should call the cops. Hell, I could have taken him out myself. Maybe I should confess to the police," I mused aloud. "No, James, that's a terrible idea," Emma warned. "We'll handle the damages ourselves. Forget about them. I'm not giving them a cent." "When's your next poker night?" I asked. "In a couple of weeks," Emma replied. "Greg won't be coming back, so don't worry. We'll have time to recover," she assured me. "James, where are you going?" Emma called out as I moved towards the door. By the time she finished speaking, I was already outside. I climbed into my car and drove off, leaving her shouting after me from the front door. Ignoring her, I drove several miles until I found a motel and booked a room for the night. I turned off my phone and spent the night staring at the ceiling. Eventually, I drifted off around 5 a.m. and woke up at 10. After showering, I paid for my stay through Wednesday at the front desk. Turning my phone back on, I found a dozen missed calls from Emma and another dozen from Lauren and Sarah. Emma's messages were full of explanations and apologies, trying to downplay the incident by framing it as just a bet. I replied with a single text, suggesting she forward her messages to her mother to get her perspective. Then I turned my phone off again. I spent 2 hours sitting on a park bench, followed by an hour wandering around the mall, and another hour on a different park bench. Later, I visited the supermarket to stock up on junk food before heading back to my motel room. I spent the rest of the night snacking and researching scams online. Exhausted, I fell asleep by 10 p.m. On Monday morning, I tried to focus on work, but my boss noticed my distraction and asked what was wrong. When I explained my family troubles, he suggested I take a few days off. He told me to call on Wednesday to confirm if I needed additional time off for the rest of the week. Since it was time to leave anyway, I decided to stop by a local bar and grill for a couple of beers and some decent food, far better than the supermarket junk. Not wanting to interact with anyone, I retreated to a booth at the back of the restaurant. Suddenly, 2 figures approached, neither of them the waitress. "Hey James, mind if Lauren and I join you?" one of them asked. I ignored them and sipped my ice water. "Are you mad at us too? What did we do?" they asked. "Nothing you did. Absolutely nothing," I replied calmly. Sarah and Lauren slid into the booth across from me, with Lauren speaking next. "James, if Sarah and I didn't do anything, why are you upset with us? I know you're not thrilled about people playing poker with Emma, but I thought we were friends," she said. "I thought so too, but you did nothing." "Seriously? You're both asking me this?" I shot back sharply but kept my voice steady. "You watched as your husband restrained me while my wife was with another man without my consent, and you stayed silent." The 2 of them fell silent. "What kind of friends are you? At one point I was pleading for someone to step in, and you 2 said nothing." "I didn't think she would actually do it," Sarah admitted. "I thought it was just a dumb joke." "I couldn't believe she went through with it," Lauren added, her remorse evident. "She feels terrible now. She's worried you might show these messages to her mom. You wouldn't, right?" "Not yet, but I will if necessary. Everyone knows how bad it was. We talked about it after you left and after the ambulance took Greg away. David and Rachel assured they wouldn't involve the police. You just have to cover the damages," I explained. "Listen, Sarah, I'm not paying anyone a dime," I declared firmly. "David and Rachel may have helped Emma with her gambling problem, but that doesn't excuse their role in this mess. Rachel watched while David held me back, and Emma destroyed our marriage just to avoid being kicked out of the poker group." "James, she's a mess. Please try to forgive her, Sarah pleaded. I'm not sure she even wants forgiveness. She doesn't think she did anything wrong. She probably expects me to apologize for stopping her from settling her bet, I retorted. She doesn't think she did anything wrong. She probably expects me to apologize for stopping her from finishing her bet, I snapped. Lauren then suggested, what if we level the playing field? What if you find someone who can fulfill your needs in return? I stared at her, my voice steady. So let me get this straight. We were in a room full of friends. Those so-called friends held me back while my wife went off to complete her bet. Now, to balance things out, I'm supposed to find someone to satisfy me? In essence, I embarrass myself, and she just hears that I retaliated. The image of her on her knees is seared into my mind. On top of that, she might just dismiss it as nothing. But I saw it all. There has to be a way to end this madness. I hate seeing my friends suffer through all this nonsense, Sarah. You claim to care about my pain, but were you okay with how much I was hurt on Saturday? You watched as it all unfolded. Friends don't do that. To me, you and Lauren are as responsible as anyone else. I've been planning some form of retribution. I need to act on it. If someone had spoken up, this wouldn't have happened. You could have confronted your husbands. It might have led to a fight, but it could have saved my marriage. Now, I'm not sure how to even the score, as you suggest. I'm not against the idea, but I don't see how it could work. What if one of us helps with that? Lauren proposed. I looked at her intently. What if it's both of you? Sarah looked alarmed. Wait, you want us to even the score? I replied with a hint of sarcasm. Yes, the guy who held me back while my wife betrayed me. Everything's perfectly clear. I'll do it, Lauren volunteered, surprising me. You're right. We have some responsibility here. I can't agree to this, Sarah said. And it's unfair to put me in this position, James. If Lauren is willing, that should be enough. No, I insisted. The bait has been set. Now it's time to reel them in. I don't see either of you as friends. This is about negotiation. I'm not seeking balance. I want the scales tipped in my favor. Sarah pondered for a while, and I grew more confident in my approach. If we agree to this, will you forgive Emma? She asked. If you refuse, I won't even consider it, I replied. And you won't tell Michael? She asked. I won't say a word, I assured her. Technically, it wasn't a lie. I wasn't planning to tell anyone. With a motel room booked until Wednesday morning, I intended to decide by the weekend whether to return home or find a new place. I can't believe this is happening, Sarah said, astonished. Welcome to my reality, I replied sarcastically. If it's too much for you, just let it go. That's not the point, James. I care about you, and you're a good person. If I weren't married, I'd be with you in a heartbeat. But I am married. You're pushing me into cheating on my husband, Sarah explained. Sarah, I'm not forcing you into anything, I clarified. I understand, all right. If it helps you get past what my husband did, then I'll do it. Either way, it's his fault. If he hadn't been an idiot, I wouldn't be in this mess. As for me, she can justify it however she wants. It's my way of getting back at her husband, so I don't care, I thought to myself. Okay, let's meet tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock in my room. I'll bring some food and wine, I proposed. Both women stood up and left, chatting eagerly. They seemed ready for the next night and not at all troubled. Am I the only one who takes marriage vows seriously? I wondered. Here I was, a married man planning to involve two married women while still preaching about the sanctity of marriage. But she had betrayed me. By doing that, she had disrespected and humiliated me. Our marriage was effectively over. I no longer felt bound by those vows. It was all over except for the paperwork and the women I was about to meet. They and their husbands were partly to blame, so to hell with them. I'll never understand people who insist on upholding the sanctity of marriage, despite their spouse's betrayals. My motto is, what's good for the goose? Yes, I might be unreasonable. Yes, she needs help with her gambling. But maybe she won't seek help until she hits rock bottom. Perhaps divorce is that rock bottom. The following day, Tuesday, I returned to my hometown. Ensuring Emma wasn't around, I went to gather some new belongings. Walking through the house, I saw remnants of my past life everywhere, knowing it would never be the same. Whenever sentimentality threatened to overwhelm me, I reminded myself of her betrayal. My anger was still fresh, so I avoided taking anything that might remind me of her. I collected electronics, my laptop, iPad, camera, basic tools, and clothing. I planned to start apartment hunting after leaving and return later for the remaining items. I didn't need much. Leaving the house, I set out to find a new place to live. I came across a reasonably priced, furnished one-bedroom apartment that was available for monthly rental and could be moved into any time after Saturday. After finalizing the lease, I went out for lunch and then prepared to meet the women. At Best Buy, I picked up an Apple SD card reader and a dozen SD cards. I also bought the cheapest wireless color printer they had. Next, I visited a liquor store and grabbed a couple of bottles of wine that Sarah and Lauren liked. Back at the motel, I arranged my belongings to make the room look cluttered, positioning the 35mm camera for a clear view of the bed. With the room in disarray, the camera was well hidden. Around 5:30, I ordered appetizers from a nearby restaurant, which arrived just before 6. At 6:15, I heard a gentle knock on the door. I checked through the peephole to ensure it was the women and not any angry husbands. While I wasn't particularly worried about my own husband, I preferred not to be caught off guard again. I started the camera and welcomed the women inside, offering them the wine. Initially hesitant, they eventually accepted, reasoning that a bit of liquid courage might help. "Ladies, we don't have to do this. We can just enjoy the wine, food, and each other's company. You both know I would never pressure you into anything you're uncomfortable with," I assured them. "I understand, James," Lauren replied. "You're such a kind person. It's a shame Jason isn't as considerate as you. Emma was truly fortunate." Sarah added, "Sarah and I have talked since we parted ways yesterday. You were right. Our silence was a failure. By not speaking up, we were complicit. I deeply regret our inaction." "I appreciate that. I just want to understand what went wrong," I said. Sarah responded, "It's hard to believe Emma made such a sudden decision. If she wanted to involve me, she should have done it before I arrived. I just want to understand why she thought this was acceptable." "James, I really believe that Saturday was the first time something like this happened. It's hard to keep something like this a secret. The truth always comes out," Sarah said, though she seemed unsure of her own words. "All right, let's get started," Lauren said eagerly. "Go to the bed and stand there." Following her instructions, I positioned myself as directed. "I'll undress you now. Stay still. No hands. I want to do this myself," she instructed. Sarah settled into the office chair by the desk, wearing a broad smile that made me wonder if they had experience with such encounters. Sarah positioned herself to capture everything on video. Lauren began unbuttoning my shirt, sliding it down my arms and leaving them extended. With a grin, she ran her hands over my chest. She then untied my shoes, having me lift each foot for her to remove them, followed by my socks. Next, she unbuckled my belt, unbuttoned my jeans, and pulled them down over my hips. Once my jeans were off, Lauren knelt in front of me. I wanted to rush the process but held back, allowing her to proceed at her own pace, which was impressive. When she finished, she looked up at me with a satisfied smile. I leaned down and kissed her forehead. "That was incredible, Lauren. Absolutely incredible." "Sarah, I'll need a moment to recharge the batteries," I said, trying to lighten the mood. We settled down with the food and wine, discussing the events of Saturday night after I left David and Rachel's. Lauren spoke up first. "You were there when Emma found the cards near Greg's shoulder and accused him of cheating. At first he was stunned, trying to protect his face from the falling glass." Sarah chimed in. "His reaction when the ambulance arrived was something else. It took a while for them to pry his hands away from his face. He looked awful." Lauren smirked, mimicking me. "So much for 'I'll go meet the ambulance.'" I replied, pretending to forget. It must have slipped my mind. "Unfortunately, he managed to pull through." Sarah shuddered at the memory. Then he kept going on about how Emma owes him a bet and how he'll get revenge. And the blood, oh, the blood. It was everywhere. The EMTs didn't even try to clean him up, just covered him and took him away. Sarah added, "Emma insisted she wouldn't settle the bet unless he proved he didn't cheat." I interjected, "So if Greg proves his innocence, she'll still honor the bet." There was a significant pause as the girls fell silent. Then Sarah resumed, "I don't think there's much to worry about right now." "Are you absolutely certain?" I asked. Sarah continued, "Greg had numerous cuts, most minor, but a few deeper ones on his abdomen that needed stitches. He stayed in the hospital until Monday to get all the glass removed. David visited him and had a heated conversation. Greg was furious. threatening not just to collect the bet but also to pursue other retribution. Sarah added, "I highly doubt Greg will be welcomed back given the cheating." As I left the house, I began searching for a new place to live and found a reasonably priced furnished one-bedroom apartment available for immediate rental starting Saturday. After finalizing the lease, I grabbed lunch and prepared for the evening. At Best Buy, I bought an Apple SD card reader and a dozen SD cards, along with a basic wireless color printer. I also picked up a few bottles of wine that Sarah and Lauren enjoyed from a nearby liquor store. Back at the motel, I arranged my belongings in a cluttered manner, strategically placing the 35mm camera to capture a clear view of the bed. The room's messiness helped keep the camera hidden. At around 5:30, I ordered appetizers from a local restaurant, which arrived just before 6. A gentle knock sounded on the door at 6:15. I peered through the peephole, making sure it was indeed the women and not someone else. Activating the camera, I welcomed them inside and offered wine. They hesitated at first, but eventually accepted, deciding that a bit of liquid courage might help. "Ladies, we don't have to go through with this. We can just enjoy the wine, food, and each other's company," I suggested. "I understand," Lauren said. "You're very considerate, James. It's a shame Jason isn't as thoughtful. Emma was lucky to have you." Sarah nodded. "We've been talking about this since we left yesterday. You were right. Our silence was a failure. Not speaking up was in itself a form of action. I deeply regret not intervening." "Thanks for understanding," I said. "I just want to know why Emma felt this was acceptable. If she had intended to involve me, she should have done it before I arrived." "James, I genuinely believe Saturday was the first time anything like this happened. It's not something you can keep secret forever. The truth always comes out," Sarah explained, though her certainty wavered. "All right, let's get started," Lauren said, eager to move forward. "Go to the bed and stand." Following her instructions, I positioned myself as directed. "I'll undress you now. Keep your hands to yourself," Lauren said, as she began unbuttoning my shirt, sliding it down my arms. She carefully removed my shoes and socks, then unbuckled my belt and pulled down my jeans. She knelt before me, and I refrained from rushing her, allowing her to proceed at her own pace. When she finished, she looked up at me with a smile. "That was incredible," I told her, leaning down to kiss her forehead. "Thank you." Sarah then took her turn. She had been watching from a chair by the desk, her demeanor calm and professional. "Let's keep this moving," she said, and after Lauren moved aside, Sarah took her place. The scene played out in a blur, a mix of moments that left me feeling both detached and oddly content. After Sarah finished, she lay beside me. I asked, "Have you done this before?" "We had our moments," Sarah said with a smirk. "You know we went to college together, right? We had a few experiences." "That's right," Lauren chimed in, laughing. "More than a few," Sarah corrected with a grin. "Okay, it was fun, but I should head out. James, I hope this helps tilt things in your favor. Please call me tomorrow and let me know how it went. I really hope you can work things out. I don't want to lose you as a friend." Lauren added, "We're truly sorry for not speaking up when we should have. Call me tomorrow, and if you need to talk later, don't hesitate to reach out." "Just to be clear," I said, "this was likely the only way." "Likely?" Sarah questioned. "That's been our discussion since last night. We'll do this again, but we'll need to be more discreet than performing in front of everyone at a poker game. Agreed?" "Agreed," I chuckled. "We'll talk tomorrow. I'll call you sometime." With that, the women left. I began working on the video, editing it to focus on the risque scenes and printing compromising still photos of both women. I copied the edited video onto the SD cards and prepared 9 identical envelopes, each containing an SD card and several explicit photos of the women. To ensure anonymity, I cropped and blurred the photos and video to obscure my face. After completing this, I went to bed and fell asleep quickly. On Wednesday morning, I woke up early, turned my phone back on, and saw a dozen missed calls and messages from Emma. I chose not to listen to or read them, but I kept them. I informed my boss I'd be taking the rest of the week off, then went back home after Emma had left for work to pack up more of my belongings. At lunch, Emma called again. I answered curtly, "What?" Her response was hesitant. As if surprised, I picked up. "Oh my God, James, please don't hang up. Where are you? We need to talk. We can work through this. Please, just talk to me. Where did you stop? Come home so we can resolve this." Interrupting, I said, "Emma, listen. We'll meet on Saturday. I'll be there at 6 p.m. Make sure everyone who was with David and Rachel is there, except your guy. If he shows up, I'll handle it. He's not my guy, James, and he's not really up for going out right now. Fine, I replied. Saturday at 6 o'clock. This isn't a party, it's a discussion. You and your friends can try to convince me why I shouldn't divorce you. I haven't listened to your messages, so be ready. Tell your friends not to be late. James, please don't ruin our marriage over a minor debt. When's the next poker night? Not sure, maybe in a couple of weeks. You don't have to attend if you don't want to. See you on Saturday. All right, James, I love you. Please come home. See you on Saturday. She just couldn't grasp it. She saw the issue as my exaggerated response to what she thought was fulfilling her obligation. She didn't see the bigger picture or recognize her problem. For her, fulfilling the poker bet seemed more important than our marriage vows. She hadn't hit her lowest point yet. The rest of the week went by relatively smoothly. I went to Walmart and bought various items for my new apartment, things for the bathroom, kitchen, and bedroom, purchasing more than I had initially planned. I checked into a motel for the night, setting up a temporary base for myself. The evenings were devoted to researching divorce. Without children and with the house sale, we were each looking at around $15,000. Our debts were minimal, and our incomes were roughly the same, so the process should be straightforward. On Saturday afternoon, I sent Emma a message asking her to notify me once everyone had arrived. I wanted to avoid the discomfort of waiting in silence or having to repeat myself if someone showed up late. At 5:45, Emma texted that everyone was already gathered and waiting in the dining room. At 5:55, I rang the doorbell of our house. Emma opened the door with a hint of surprise. It's your house, James. You don't need to ring the bell. As you wish, I said, walking past her. I carried a small duffel bag filled with envelopes and made my way to the dining room. The dining area was furnished with pieces that had been handed down by Emma's grandmother. The large table could accommodate 10 people, with 4 chairs on each side and 1 at each end. As I entered, 3 empty seats were to my right. David was seated at the far right end, while Rachel was on the left with her back turned. To Rachel's left, there were 3 vacant seats next to David. Facing me were Michael, Jason, Sarah, and finally Lauren. Kevin was positioned at the head of the table on the left. Emma brushed past me and took one of the empty seats in the middle of the 3, evidently hoping I would sit next to her. Instead, I chose the seat at the left end where Kevin was sitting. This is my spot, I said firmly. Emma looked at me and suggested, You could sit next to me, James. Let's make a bet. How about we bet on who gets this seat? I replied, Emma, put your phone on record. I have a feeling you might need it. Without a word, Kevin stood and moved to the other side of Emma. I placed my gym bag on the empty seat to my right. Emma activated the recording app on her iPhone and set it on the table. As I took my seat, I surveyed the group. After a moment of uneasy silence, I addressed the gathering. We're all here for a reason. I'm considering divorcing Emma. If any of you want to convince me otherwise, now is your chance. Kevin, would you like to start? James, I'm probably not the best person to offer advice on this, Kevin said, his voice heavy with regret. My own divorce came about because my wife cheated on me. I'm truly sorry you're going through this. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate your honesty. I might have more questions later, I said, nodding at him. I turned to David. David, what's your perspective on this situation? It's no issue for me, David replied. She adores you, and she's beautiful. Did you expect her to be perfect? No, I responded, but I hoped she'd strive to be better. Would you be okay if Rachel entertained other men while you were together? David fell silent, and Rachel shifted uncomfortably in her chair. So, how long have you two been openly cheating on each other? I asked with a hint of sarcasm, though it was meant to provoke. Rachel's face flushed. We only did it 3 times. I hate it, but David insists we continue. I want to stop. I despise this. All right, Rachel, I said calmly. You and Emma should discuss this later. You shouldn't feel pressured to do anything you're uncomfortable with. David exploded. You're a fool, James. I warned Emma about you when she started dating you. You're incompetent, and she should have left you ages ago. You destroyed thousands of dollars worth of stuff in my house because of your wife's actions. Maybe I should just trash everything here. Calm down, David, I said evenly. All this furniture belonged to Amelia's grandmother. It means nothing to me. David slumped back in his chair, his gaze sharp and unyielding. Michael, Jason, any thoughts from you two? Michael spoke up. None of us want to see this split happen. You've been part of our group for years. I interjected. No, Michael, you're friends with Emma, not with me. And you, Jason, do you think I'm exaggerating? Jason said nothing. I continued. If you saw your friend Jason's wife in a compromising position, would you intervene or call Jason? And if it were Jason in that position, would you call Lauren? Michael and Jason exchanged uneasy glances. I already know the answers, I said. If it's Jason's wife, you'd intervene. If it's Jason, you'd stay out of it. The issue here is that Emma is your friend's wife, and you're protecting her. The tension in the room was palpable as the conversation unfolded, and it was clear that this meeting was taking unexpected turns. Jason remained silent. Here's the issue, I continued. Emma is your friend, but I'm just the husband. If Emma were to attack me, you wouldn't care because I'm not one of you. I'm not your friend. If I hadn't shown up tonight, none of you would have said a word to me. You'd all be thinking, all right, the ice is broken. Next time I'll be the one making a bet with her. I turned to Emma. When did you lose respect for me? What are you talking about, James? Emma asked, looking puzzled. I respect you more than anyone else. Really? When did I ever say this was acceptable? I pressed. I never claimed it was, she replied quietly. Then how many times did this happen before last week? I demanded. What? Never? She stammered. Why are you surprised by this question? I challenged. Why should I trust you? If I hadn't seen it myself, would you have ever told me? Would you have waited until we got home and casually mentioned, hey, something weird happened at the poker game tonight? That's the problem, Emma, I said. You were willing to jeopardize our marriage for the sake of your poker group. I came second to your friends. I can't reconcile with that. I turned to Jason and Michael. You guys knew Emma would prioritize her poker games over our marriage, and you encouraged her instead of talking sense into her. What would you do if you saw your wives with another man? Would you just watch? They exchanged glances, smirking, before facing me. Is she getting paid for this? Michael asked. Sarah's jaw dropped. Jason added, will she learn any new skills? I just grinned. So when's the next poker game? They murmured among themselves for a while. Jason finally asked, are you interested? No, I replied. When's the next poker game? Emma, confused, asked, why are you asking about the next game when you're saying you won't come back? All right, I've had enough, I said. I retrieved my gym bag and began pulling out the envelopes. Tonight, I was going to shatter a couple of marriages, but it seems they're already on shaky ground. I put the envelopes back and closed the bag. Emma, you tore my heart out and enlisted your friends to restrain me while you did it. And you still don't see any wrongdoing? You betrayed me and humiliated me. Your poker group status clearly means more to you than I do. The worst part is that these people aren't your friends. Real friends wouldn't let you or anyone else go through this. Emma started to speak. No, darling, you mean everything to me. Take it easy, Amelia, I interrupted. It's my turn now. You haven't even apologized. You've just rationalized why you should settle your debts. You keep insisting we need to move on, yet you never admitted any wrongdoing. Even now, you plan to attend poker nights. If you're willing to gamble your body while I'm around, what would you risk when I'm not here? Am I supposed to raise another person's child because you lost a bet and someone else got you pregnant? We're done. You have a gambling problem. Get help. I'll consult a lawyer on Monday. If you want your own attorney, fine. You can have almost everything, including your misguided friends. Jason sneered. What an idiot you are. Screw you, Jason, Lauren shot back, surprising everyone. He's right about everything. You're all ruining his marriage for your own amusement. James was about to expose everything, and I'm surprised he didn't. You know I was involved. James, can I get a ride with you? Sarah asked. An awkward silence followed for about 10 seconds before Sarah spoke up. I'm fed up, Michael. I'm tired of carrying all the weight in this relationship. James is right. You hardly even sit by my side. Before all this mess, James treated Amelia with more respect than you ever treated me. It infuriates me that you facilitated all this. Last Saturday, when it all went down, I was just as shocked as you were. I thought it was a sick joke because I believed she loved you. I'm truly sorry I didn't speak up sooner, but maybe it's better for you to know now, especially since you don't have children. Can I catch a ride with you? We left the house with Emma sobbing uncontrollably, David and Rachel arguing about the swing, and Michael and Jason exchanging threats. Both girls stormed out, flipping the bird as they went. I dropped Lauren and Sarah off at Lauren's parents' house and then returned to my motel. I finished off the remaining drinks in the room and devoured the last of the junk food. I eventually drifted off around midnight. The divorce proceeded smoothly. We sold the house, and Emma put all the furniture into storage. I ended up with everything I wanted from a surprisingly modest house. Lauren and Sarah divorced their spouses, and the three of us settled into a friends with benefits arrangement. Emma has remained silent. Frankly, I was disappointed. I expected her to fight harder, perhaps push for counseling. It was clear that marriage meant less to her than it did to me. While I didn't develop romantic feelings for Sarah or Lauren individually, the three of us grew very close. A year after everything went down, I found myself at the bar Emma and I used to frequent for special occasions. The divorce had been finalized 4 months ago. I was nursing a beer, lost in thoughts of what could have been. That's when I felt someone approaching. I kept my gaze fixed on the wall, hoping they'd take the hint and leave me alone. "Mind if I join you?" I didn't look up. "Sure, have a seat." "A nice guy like you sitting alone?" she said with a friendly tone. "Well, I usually hang out with 2 great friends, but they're off on a double date tonight. Funny you mentioned friends. I heard there was a kind-hearted guy here by himself, so I thought I'd come introduce myself. I'm Emma." I chuckled softly, deciding to engage. "Nice to meet you, Emma. I'm James. What brings you here by yourself?" Emma sighed. "I guess I'm celebrating my own failure. I couldn't keep my relationship from falling apart. My ex-husband and I divorced because of my mistakes. Now my closest friends are with other people, and here I am. Maybe I'm a failure too. I had the best boyfriend anyone could ask for, but I messed up. He divorced me. Did he do what was best for him or for me?" "You'd probably have to ask him," I replied. Emma looked down. "People say he's unhappy all the time, and you? It's been tough." His departure threw me into a dark period of self-reflection. I didn't like what I saw, so I started counseling for my dependency issues and have been working on it ever since. My husband saw it coming, tried to warn me, but I didn't listen. In a way, the divorce was inevitable. My dependency was eroding his love for me. "I never stopped loving you, Emma. I couldn't," I said quietly. Emma nodded. "I know, James. It's nice to hear you call me Emma or Em again, not Amelia. I came to explain myself, and to make sure you know it's not your fault. I know you understand this, but I needed to say it. That poker night, I thought I'd win. When I didn't, I paid the price. I didn't even think of it as cheating, more like fulfilling a promise. I worried they might push me out of the group. I never saw it as risking our marriage because I didn't think you'd leave. I expected you'd be angry, but then forgive me. I thought you'd understand my need to keep my word. Now I see it for what it was, a terrible mistake. During therapy, I mentioned how you wanted me to document everything, and my therapist actually praised you for your approach. She was amazed our marriage lasted as long as it did. She also explained why you were so focused on the poker nights. Just so you know, there haven't been any more poker nights. I haven't touched a deck of cards since that night, and I never will again. I haven't been in contact with those people since shortly after our fight. "How's Rachel doing?" I asked. "She's doing okay. She and David ended up divorcing. He turned out to be quite a jerk, and she felt too embarrassed to speak up. Eventually, she decided to leave him. Now she's seeing someone new at work," Emma said. "James, you were right about everything. I prioritized that foolish poker group over everything else. I loved you deeply and thought you'd understand. If those people were true friends, things wouldn't have gone this way. I couldn't resist the allure of being part of that group. Allowing Greg to do what he did makes me sick to my stomach. Without your intervention, I can't imagine how things would have unfolded. I'm deeply sorry for the pain I caused. I genuinely wish you the best. I'd like to stay friends, but I understand if you don't want that. I'll leave now before I start crying like a child. Call me if you want to talk." Emma stood and headed towards the door. "Hey, Em," I called after her. She paused but didn't turn around. "Yes, James?" Her shoulders were shaking with tears. "Have you had dinner yet?" I asked. "No, James, not yet," she replied, her voice soft. I stood up, walked over, and gently put my arm around her shoulders. "Let's go get a proper dinner." I guided her out of the bar. Emma and I rekindled our relationship. A few months later, we moved back in together. 9 months after that, we remarried at the courthouse, keeping the same anniversary date. True to her word, Emma gave up gambling entirely, even refraining from joking bets. While some might say, once a cheater, always a cheater, I don't believe that applies to Emma. I view her actions through the lens of her dependency. Understanding it led her to behavior she wouldn't have otherwise engaged in. Her motives weren't to shame me or find another partner. She was battling her dependency. The guys from the poker group are still friends, except for Kevin, who distanced himself. As for Greg, I never heard from him again. It seems he decided to leave town to avoid further confrontation. Emma and I have maintained friendships with Rachel, Lauren, and Sarah. Rachel has also stopped playing poker. They've all agreed to be godmothers to our son.